welcome back, where all things divorce are addressed here. Today, I am honored to have Jennifer Smith. She's a psychotherapist, and today we're going to cover all things divorce in the therapist world. So one of my first questions for you is, in the therapist world, if you will, there's lots of different titles. And I'm just curious from your perspective, if maybe you can, one, just give us a little education in regards to that. And then maybe number two, if there's a direction, if someone is either thinking about a divorce or going through it, can you kind of guide them in the direction of where they should seek help first?
Absolutely. And yes, there is a lot of confusion about the different titles. There's a psychiatrist, there's a psychologist, there's a psychotherapist or therapist, so those names are synonymous. There's also licensed clinical social workers, so a lot of times people are a little bit confused about the titles. So if you're looking for medication for any sort of psychiatric or mental health condition, you're going to be seeing a psychiatrist. They are a doctor, MD, specializing in psychiatry.
Okay.
And then a psychologist can do therapy, just like a psychotherapist or therapist. They have further training that allows them to do testing as well.
Okay.
So if you're looking for some sort of assessment, psychological assessment, neuropsychological assessment, you want to know if you have ADHD or if you're on the autistic spectrum, or if you want to test for intellectual functioning, you're going to see a psychologist for
Gotcha.
that.
Okay.
Psychologists can also do therapy, just like a licensed marriage and family therapist or a psychotherapist.
Okay.
So if you're just looking for what we call the traditional talk therapy, again, a psychologist can be seen for that, or a therapist / psychotherapist. So does that explain it?
It does.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
And I think for anyone who has not ever been to a therapist, I think there's probably a lot of misconceptions or just a lack of knowledge of what to know and what to anticipate. So do you do these sessions live? Do you have options to do them via Zoom call? Like, what's customary?
Sure. So here at Smith Psychotherapy Group, we offer free phone consultations first. We'll do a 20-minute phone consultation to make sure that it's a good fit, that our location and our fees and our therapists all meet what you're looking for. And then from there, we would schedule your first session. And the sessions are generally 50 minutes. We offer both in person and we call telehealth through a platform that we use called Simple Practice.
Okay.
And depending on what state you're licensed in, so for us here in California, we can only see clients that are also in the state of California. So if it is telehealth, it would have to be somebody that's located in the state of California because that's where we're licensed.
Okay.
Licensed to practice.
Gotcha. Okay. And so for couples thinking about going through a divorce, maybe obviously they're struggling with communication or whatever the issue might be, what do you suggest their first couple of steps be? If they're kind of teetering on this decision, right?
So typically what we'll do is we'll schedule a session with the both of them first, kind of hear a little bit about what's going on.
Okay.
Then oftentimes we will break off into an individual session with each person in the relationship just to get a better understanding of where they're at. And then from there we'll make some recommendations. We'll make some recommendations to perhaps do couples counseling to see if we can implement some strategies to try to save the marriage.
Okay.
And if both couples are expressing that they're not sure and that they'd like to move towards discussions around divorcing, then we might move into supporting them through the divorce process.
Okay.
And of course, we're always looking for referrals that we can give them to support them in the process. That could be to a real estate agent that specializes in divorce. It could be to an attorney. It's really important to empower yourself with knowledge.
Right.
A lot of times I will get people that were like, well, we can't afford a divorce, or I would never be able to survive on my own. So it's really important to empower yourself with knowledge and not just assume.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing is, collaborative divorce, right? All the different entities that take you through it, like you alluded to, like family law, therapists, financial advisors. There's all of the different spectrums, if you will, of tools that we have to be able to guide them through that process, right? And
exactly.
It's nice that you offer that, because I think a lot of times people don't know that that's even an option. They come to you for just this, not knowing that you've, made business decisions and have, built those relationships and have the tools to be able to help them kind of navigate the different chapters.
Absolutely. We also have therapists here that work with children to help the children and the family through the process. We can coach parents on how to talk to your kids about what's about to happen and help, collaboratively make the best decisions possible for as minimal change as possible for the kids.
Yeah.
That's what we want to try to control for, is keeping consistency and stability for the kids.
Yeah, I agree. Sticking with the same topic of, going through a divorce and dealing with children, are there some words of wisdom that you can provide when you are, parenting and you have children and trying to break the news of we are getting a divorce?
Sure.
Like, what do those steps look like?
Sure. You really don't want to have that conversation with the kids until you and your partner have decided what it's going to look like. We want to be gentle and age appropriate in the language that we use, but we also want to have as many answers to their questions as possible. So this discussion with the kids really shouldn't happen until you have a clear path with your partner about what the next steps are.
Right.
Because they're going to be confused, and with kids, if we don't give them information, they will use their imagination to fill in the blanks.
Right.
So we want to have as much detail worked out as possible, and if there is a detail that we don't have quite worked out, we would let them know the time frame that they can expect to have an answer.
Okay.
But we don't want to leave too much of the decision making up to them. We want to make these decisions for them. We want them to believe that we have their best interest at heart, that we are still, the parents, and still watching out for their concern and not looking to them for advice or direction.
Right.
So a lot of the decisions you want to make with your partner ahead of time before you have that discussion. And when possible, have that discussion together with your partner.
Oh, that's great.
About, here's where we're at, here's what the next steps are, and what you can expect. Because we want to avoid putting them in the middle.
Right.
And avoid using language that may not, highlight the other person in the best regard.
Right.
So if you're having that conversation together and it's planned out ahead of time, you're more likely to avoid that.
That's great. That's really good feedback. So when it comes to that point where they've delivered the news, the whole family is aware of this, do you suggest at that point that they bring the children in and maybe have a family, time with therapists, or do things separately? Is there a better path?
Yeah, I mean, if the parents feel confident and we've rehearsed kind of like what they're going to say to the kids and how and when and under what circumstances, which I've done this before and it's been successful, then go for it. Plan it, best timing for the family, how the rest of the day is going to look or the rest of the evening is going to look. A lot of people are worried about the right timing. There really isn't the best timing for this. It's going to be difficult for the kids no matter what.
Right.
Definitely maybe not like right during finals or right before a big test or a big game or something like that. So the timing just has to work for the family.
Right.
But if you can do it on your own, that's great, and I encourage that. But if parents are worried about conflict between the two of them arising or not being able to do it together, or they're scared about being able to respond to the kids' reactions, we can absolutely do it in a session.
Okay.
For sure.
Just in the event sometimes there's communication issues within a relationship and they may very want like almost like a mediator type situation, right? Where can we do it together so that we have someone neutral, and you know, being able to facilitate a very calm, peaceful environment is maybe a good thing in some situations.
Absolutely, and ultimately, and I'll use this language with a lot of couples that I work with that are going through a divorce, is, you know, my goal is that each partner feels like they're practicing self-respect, and that we're learning to practice respect of others in that situation too. So even if you've decided that this person is no longer your person, still getting to the point where we can respect them as the parent of our children. And at one point they were our person. We thought they were. Right. But things change.
Things change. So would there be any different approach when it comes to, because now silver divorce is becoming very popular for whatever reason, and there's adult children involved, right? And adult children take it very close to heart as well and go through the different changes. And even though they're adult children, some living at home, some living on their own, do you have different steps that would, you know, help the family communicate effectively with the adult children, or if there's different methods to whether you're dealing with children or whether you're dealing with adults in these situations, and how to break the
For sure. There's definitely going to be different approaches depending upon the age of the children, of the people that are divorcing. And then of course it's going to be kind of a case by case situation depending on, you know, how well adapted the children are or what stage of life they're in. Different developmental stages will have slightly different approaches. If it is an older adult, you know, kind of midlife adult, if it's like you said, silver age divorce, then it's going to look a little bit different, again, depending on where that person's at in their life and what they're going through. If they're struggling in their relationship, if they're struggling in work, if they're struggling in raising their own kids, the conversation could vary depending on that. And it's unique, but one of the things that therapy can provide is sort of like talking through the best approach and what that template might look like for that conversation.
Okay. So when clients are coming to you and they're considering divorcing, do you help them navigate the proper next channels in kind of setting the expectations of what could be in their future if in fact they decide to take that route?
Sure, definitely. So I really do try to take the approach of getting both partners to the point where they feel that they've tried everything to make the marriage work. I don't want anybody exiting a marriage feeling like I could have or I should have. So I really do like to try to get people to that point where they feel like they've tried as much as they can. And that they're not going to feel that regret or remorse afterwards. And some of that is talking through realistically what a divorce looks like and what they can expect. Because a lot of people think, well, I just don't have to be married to this person anymore and deal with this unhappiness or this conflict on a daily basis. It's so much more than that, especially if you have children, if you've created a life together. There is a high likelihood that you will still be involved with that person to a certain degree for a very long time to come, especially if you do have children. At some point you're going to be grandparents together. You know, even if you're remarried or you've moved on, there is going to be a certain level of contact and communication that will always exist. There's a lot of details, and I will talk with people through these details to see if they're up for it, if this still feels like the best choice. So it could be, you know, well, you start with attorneys and figuring out the details of everything, which can be a really stressful time period, where conflict can arise when it comes down to money. A lot of conflict can come from that, hurt feelings, anger. We want to keep working towards remembering the bigger picture of what we're trying to do. And then once you are divorced, there's how you're going to handle situations like holidays, birthday parties, graduations, first dates, doctor's appointments, you know, who's taking them to the dentist appointment, all these little details, decide to start dating, how that's handled, and you know, how you introduce that person into the family dynamic and incorporate that, especially if there's other kids.
Right.
And then when they're adults, how do you handle it when they get married, when they have children? There's so many things to think about, you know, that you will still be involved in your partner's life once your ex is.
Right.
And so I do like to talk through the realities of that and how they're going to handle those situations and really do some forecasting.
Yeah.
So that we can try to predict for those variables and make it as amicable as possible.
Yeah, I love that you do that, because I think a lot of times we just get kind of stuck in the own turmoil, right? It's the stress, it's the emotions, and you really can't see what's going to happen in 6 months to a year to 2 years from now,
Right.
let alone 10 years from now. But if you're, you know, kind of setting the proper expectation of what's to come, they can properly plan for that,
Right.
communicate around it, and hopefully it's, you know, not so grueling, if you will, and not so difficult.
One of the questions I like to ask both partners is, what outcome are you looking for? And what's the ideal outcome that you are looking for? Because without that, we have nothing guiding us. We're guiding our decisions. We're more likely to act in an emotional way or react instead of respond. But if we have something that we're working towards, a mutual goal, you know, an ideal outcome, or what we want things to look like post-divorce, that can be our sort of barometer, let's say, for decisions that have to be made along the way.
Right. I love that, because then everyone's, you know, fully communicating and you have the same goal.
Right.
And everyone's working towards it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And I think a lot of times people go to therapy not knowing really what to expect, other than they know they need someone to speak to, right? But in speaking with you, it's nice to see, yes, it is someone that they can confide in, but it's also someone to help give direction and show what are the steps in front of me. What is that journey going to look like? Let's talk about it. Let's give you an outline so that you know how to navigate it properly. So
Absolutely.
I think that's huge.
Yeah, and I'm really big on, you know, just like empowering through knowledge, because without that knowledge, we tend to be a little bit more scared and unsure.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people are afraid to bring the topic of divorce up in a relationship, but it's really important, if one person is considering that or feeling that way, that it be brought out into the open as a realistic option. And sometimes that can actually save a marriage. When someone else hears that their partner has considered that, it could really motivate both people in the relationship to do whatever it takes to avoid that.
Right, to salvage it, right? I think sometimes we probably don't think, oh, that's down the road, or, you know, that's the D word that we don't want to talk about, you know, kind of submerge it, if you will. But if it comes to the forefront, then it's like, okay, now it's open forum. We need to talk about it. What do we need to do to avoid it?
Exactly.
Right? And work through those channels.
Yeah.
So I think this has been really helpful. I know anyone that's watching is going to think that this is going to help them through their journey, and hopefully give them, you know, a better understanding of what's out there and what that looks like. Because I think a lot of people just believe it's the couch, it's someone lying down, you know, speaking to someone to offer proper advice. But this is full spectrum. This isn't just let's talk about, you know, what's bothering you today. This is let's really talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's navigate it together, and let me also show you the pathway to make it a little easier and to give you the proper guidance, which is amazing. And I think so many couples probably don't do it that need to do it. So hopefully with this video it will help anyone that's teetering on the idea of, should I, you know, make that phone call. Hopefully it does give them the power to go ahead and make that phone call and, you know, better themselves and better their relationships.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for spending time with me today.
Yeah,
I really
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me. Yeah, I've
Okay.
enjoyed it. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank